Really excited. I'll start over just so people can hear it. Welcome and thank you for joining our session today on the childcare crisis in Vermont. We're really excited to have you guys joining us today. We've got a packed agenda. So I'm just going to do a really quick intro and then we'll get into it. First, on the admin side, if you have a question, post it in the chat window. We will be monitoring it throughout the session, and then we'll queue up some questions for the Q&A section at the end of near the end of the hour. My name is Rachel Goyette. I'm a co-chair of the Women United Council, along with Jet White, who is also here today. And you'll be hearing from her a little bit later to end the session. But for those of you who don't know, Women United is a group of, as I say, get her done type of women who really want to drive change in our communities. And so we do this with the support and expertise of our wonderful friends at the United Way of Northwest Vermont. Our mission as a council is to help increase the financial stability of Vermont women and their families. And we have been doing this through educating the community around the need and the issues, and then by raising money to support United Way's Working Bridges program. Working Bridges, if you're not familiar with it, helps low to moderate wage earners navigate life issues by bringing resource coordinators to their work site who can help them. And what we're really excited about is that we're adding, as of today, an advocacy arm, and that's where this three-part childcare series is coming from. And so, of course, it's great to educate. It's great and necessary also to raise money for the cause. But we wanted to go that step further and help people like you and like me figure out how we can personally make a difference. And so that brings us to today. So as I said, this is part one of a three-part series. Today is going to be education. Childcare is by no means a new problem, but has certainly been exacerbated by the pandemic. And so when we started to think about where we wanted to focus right now on trying to build up some advocacy, is that we want, that's why we picked childcare. So we'll spend the hour today educating on the issues, what's been done recently about it, what's on the horizon, and then of course, how you can help. We've collaborated with Let's Grow Kids on this and have an amazing lineup of women that will share information and experiences from their various perspectives. So thanks in advance to Let's Grow Kids and all the presenters for the partnership in delivering this. Part two will be in October. That'll be an advocacy training session, and I know there'll be more discussion on that later. And then part three is then putting the advocacy into action. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Anna Gebhardt, the field director of Let's Grow Kids.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm just so honored to be here and to be able to take this time to talk with all of you, not just about the childcare crisis, but about advocacy. It's really a passion of mine to support everyone to feel empowered, to being part of solutions that really positively can affect your own life and the life of the others in your community and in our great state. So I am the field director for Let's Grow Kids currently, and I believe that every great presentation starts with a story. So Carrie, if you move to the next slide, I'd love to share my own personal story with you all. I came to Vermont to pursue a degree in early childhood education at Champlain College. And right after graduating, I decided to stay here and raise my own family. I worked for over 15 years throughout the state in various capacities, from everything from being the director of a childcare program to being a lead preschool teacher in a classroom to running my own childcare program in my home. And unfortunately, I learned really quickly as an entrepreneur and as a business owner that the childcare system has a broken business model. Parents cannot afford to pay more, and early educators really cannot afford to earn less. And so, like many early educators, I struggled actually to be able to support my own family on the money I was making as an early educator. And eventually, I actually did have to close my doors as a childcare program here in Burlington. This is heartbreaking for me. And so now I've committed my day, my full time, to being an advocate in Vermont to ensure that we can see a childcare system in which that supports families and that really provides the opportunity for a mixed delivery system so that every family can find a fit that works best for their family and their children, and that fit is high quality, that is well resourced, and that their children are really being cared for by professionals who are treated with the respect, recognition, and the compensation that they deserve to do this essential work. I am, I just think it's so critical that we support the early educators that have weathered the storm through the last couple of years, that are still here supporting our communities, and our economy to thrive. And I also want to provide a future in which every person who wants to be an early educator can see a passionate and lucrative career, one in which they can, like you can see from these photos, it really lights me up to be with babies and toddlers. I wish I could do it every day. Like I said, it breaks my heart to not be in the classroom. And I want to see a future in which people who feel that same way, who feel lit up about providing, this nurturing environment for children, can also see themselves in the longevity of that career. So I'm just going to put a quick shout out, and if you're not on mute, it would be great for those of you listening in to just double check your Zoom settings and make sure you're on mute so that we can continue the presentation without interruptions. And Carrie, maybe you can support that as the host. And we'll move on to the next slide, just to talk a little bit about some of the statistics that the childcare setting is facing right now.
Sorry, I'm having trouble moving the slide.
No problem.
I don't know why.
I'll just keep talking while you're working out the logistics behind the scenes. So the next question we're going to ask is, like, why childcare? Why is childcare such a critical investment? And I know that this, and you can jump right to the next slide, Carrie. I know this is an audience I do not need to convince, but we know that the brain science shows us clearly that 0 to 5 is one of the most critical times for brain development. In fact, an infant is creating 1 million neural connections every second. And that's why we know that investing in childcare is an important aspect of equity for all of our children to have access to supportive environments that increase this brain development. It also is an incredible return on that investment. And we know that for every dollar spent in Vermont on childcare, we see at least $3 return on that investment, not only in this child's future as a Vermonter, but also in the immediate return and seeing people being able to get back out and get to work. All right, we're gonna move quickly through a couple of slides here, Carrie. Thank you. And we also really believe strongly that all children should have access to a positive learning experience that will set them up for long-term success and wellness. So we know why we want to invest in childcare, but we know also that there's a childcare crisis at hand. So let's just dig into a little bit more around the problem. We've got a poll for you because I want to just check to see who here, out of the 35 people present, let's just take a quick moment and interact with some of these facts and think about, so consider, even before the pandemic, what percentage of Vermont children did not have access to the childcare that they needed? And Carrie, are you able to pop that poll up on the screen?
That is giving me a little bit of issue too. So let me see what I can do.
All right.
I'm sorry, Anna. I don't know why that's not allowing me to pull up the poll because I am not on a different device. So.
All right. Well, why don't you, if you have a guess, we were going to do a multiple choice. And the question again is, even before the pandemic, what percentage of Vermont's children did not have access to the childcare they need? And the multiple choice was going to be, is it 25% of Vermont's children, 40% of Vermont's children, 61% of Vermont's children, or 85% of Vermont's children? So if you'd like to make a guess, go ahead and throw that in the chat. I see some people putting up 61% as their best guess as how many children did not have access to the childcare they needed even before the pandemic. Thanks for participating. So Carrie, you can move to the next slide. And so if you guessed 61%, you're correct. And sorry about the formatting of this slide. But in fact, it is 61% of children. That means 3 out of 5 of Vermont's children do not have access to the childcare they need. And this is just wild, you know, so and there's a lot of reasons why this is true. And so I'm just going to go ahead and actually read some of the statistics for you all so that you have the details about that. So even before the pandemic, over 61% of Vermont's children did not have access to the childcare they needed, either because they can't find it or they can't afford it, or both. That means that too many kids are missing out on a strong start in life. Childcare is also unaffordable. Many Vermont families are spending more than 30% of their income on childcare. And that's when they can actually find it. And then we see the real stress that's happening for early childhood educators. They're terribly undervalued. And in Vermont, the median annual wage for a preschool teacher is $34,000 a year, and that's often without benefits. And that's $20,000 less than a kindergarten teacher. And these are people that are college graduates with degrees and student debt. And we also know that Vermont's economy is at stake. Vermont has the second oldest population in the country after Maine, and even before COVID-19 pandemic, Vermont businesses struggled to find the qualified workers they needed to thrive. Our ability to thrive as a state, to broaden the tax base, and to maintain the workforce our businesses need to succeed relies on retaining and recruiting young people and families to live in Vermont. Without access to affordable childcare, Vermont will continue to be an unaffordable place to live and to raise a family. So there's a lot of pieces to the problem, but let's get a little bit into the solution here. So Let's Grow Kids has been working for quite some time to develop some real strategies towards solving the childcare crisis here in our state. And we're really looking at a solution that is accessible, which means that each and every child will have the access to the high quality childcare when and where they need it. That's affordable, so that no family will spend more than 10% of their income on childcare. That's high quality, where every child is taught by an effective, well-prepared, and well-compensated member of a diverse early childhood education workforce. Also, accountability is really critical so that this system will have well-coordinated and transparent governance, administrative and accountability structures and resources. And then finally, really critical is the sustainability of the system. So the system will need to have a sustainable, long-term, dedicated and equitable funding statewide so that we can really see this, the childcare system supporting every early educator and every parent. I'm going to just talk quickly about Let's Grow Kids, and then we're going to get some real, real people's experiences and stories. So let's just go through the next couple of slides, Carrie. So Let's Grow Kids' mission is to ensure affordable access to high quality childcare for all Vermont families by 2025. That means the timeline is coming close. And so what we've done now is that we've created Let's Grow Kids, which is a nonprofit really working on the big picture, where we support early educators and parents and families to be advocates. And then we also have the Let's Grow Kids Action Network. And this is really giving a lot more strength to our mission so that we can ensure that over the next few years, we have also elected officials who are childcare champions. So let's just look at the timeline. So this year in 2021, we actually passed landmark legislation, and I'm really excited because we have a true childcare champion right here with us, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, who is Representative Ann Pugh of South Burlington, who let us know what she's been doing to work on this incredible legislation, which we were able to pass this year, which is H171. And that bill actually establishes state goals for the childcare affordability, access, and quality, prioritizing state input and engaging experts to identify long-term funding sources to guide our continued work together. And it also set up current immediate investments to support the childcare system this year. And then we're going to move to 2022, where we'll really set up Vermont's future childcare system, and where we're going to work hard to make sure we are an organization and a community that is organizing to elect legislators who are childcare champions, so that in 2023 we can secure that long-term funding source, sustainable funding. And then in 2024, we can all really bring our shared vision to life, so that in 2025, we'll all be celebrating. And at that point, Let's Grow Kids will sunset. We work really closely with a number of partners on all of this, including our policy agenda. And some of those organizations include Vermont AUIC, Building Bright Futures, the Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance, and a lot of other business partners. So I just wanted to finally, the last minute of my time here, just highlight one of our partnerships. So Carrie, the next slide, thank you, is, yeah, that one. This is a current project we're working on, and we're working on this project in partnership with the Vermont Commission on Women, Change the Story Vermont, Migrant Justice, the Vermont Works for Women, and the Vermont Women's Fund. And we're really focusing here on solutions to support women in fully participating in the workforce. And this is our Make Work Work for Us campaign. And you may have seen this on social media. Many women, like Taylor, came forward, shared their stories, and really spoke up about what it was like to run a business, try to run a farm, or even just get through the workday when you're trying to balance work and life with an infant and you don't have access to the childcare you need. I encourage everyone to check this out and to get involved. So, like I said, every good presentation starts with and continues with some personal shared experiences. So next you're going to hear from both an early educator and a parent and employer about what their experience has been like trying to navigate the childcare crisis in Vermont. We're going to start with Katie Brown, who is the executive director of the South Hero Parent Child Center, to share a little bit about her experience running a childcare program.
Hi, my name is Katie Brown, and I'm the executive director of the Champlain Island Parent Child Center. And I've worked in early ed for the past 12 years. I started working at the public school right out of high school, and I quickly went to early childhood ed because I was offered a childcare discount, and I was a new young mom. So I took the pay cut, and I went to work at a childcare provider center because it made more sense to save money on tuition than it did to use the benefits that I could access to public school. And then I continued my journey to be an early childhood educator. I went to college at Johnson State College, and now I'm the director up in South Hero. Meeting the needs of Grand Isle community is an everyday struggle. I have waiting lists that are pages long. Families can't get in until their children are preschool age, and my ratio and group size changes. We just lost a licensed childcare program in June of 2021, and this program had been operating for nearly 30 years and was really wonderful. But she had insurmountable staffing struggles, and it is just too much sometimes. It wasn't an easy decision for her to make, and I'm really sad to not have that program to collaborate with. But another program did open up in South Hero, but it's still just not enough to meet the demand in our community. Prior to COVID-19 shutting us down last March, CIPCC's board of directors had worked to add 3 more preschool classrooms, or 3 more classrooms, I'm sorry, 2 more infant toddler spaces, and another 2 to 3-year-old space. But because of COVID, we couldn't move forward with the renovation and add new classroom spaces because we couldn't afford the loan and a renovation of this magnitude. With help from grant funding, we were able to add 1 more classroom. So we now have a school-age classroom at our home base in South Hero, but it was only 1 more classroom and we had intended to add more than that. In hindsight, it was probably a blessing that we didn't add this many more classrooms because I still struggle to find adequate staffing. And it's only been compounded by the pandemic. It's an illusion, I think, that South Hero is super duper far away because we're really only 25 minutes away, and it's a beautiful drive. You get to go over the causeway. But I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why people don't apply, is because it seems like we're really far away. But retaining the qualified staff that we need to run a high quality program is it's a constant struggle. I can't pay a higher enough hourly wage, and I lose teachers to positions in the public schools. Or entry-level positions elsewhere because they'll take a raise to take those jobs. In the past 2 years, I've lost 3 lead teachers simply because I can't pay to keep them. 1 teacher who had a master's degree went to go work the night shift at IBM because their benefits and their hourly night premium is higher than I could compete with. Another teacher went to the public school to be a behavioral interventionist, again, taking a raise and better benefits. And another one went to go work as a teller at the bank. And again, the same pattern, sort of higher rate, better benefits. 2 of them still come back and sub for me when they can because they love the center. They just can't afford to stay. This past July, the board of directors pushed through raises for everybody. But we can't really afford them. But they recognized that staff retention was just a constant struggle. So they were like, okay, well, we're gonna try and fix it. But this means that we go without a lot of supplies that we would like to have because we wanna pay higher wages to keep the teachers here. COVID has brought a lot of really great things to the early childhood community because we've all kind of collaborated. There's been a lot of Zoom meetings and behind the scenes conversations that happen with the early childhood directors because we're all sort of struggling with the same thing. We've got these expenses that have increased. The food program budget is more, keeping teachers is more, and there's really not a lot of support. When we were first closed for COVID, we kind of turned on a dime and figured out how to be remote early child care providers. And that was a lot of differentiated instruction to figure out how to meet the needs of these families. And their needs were vast. Some of them needed, someone to do a read aloud because they had a meeting at 10, and some of them wanted circle time accessible. Some of them wanted adaptable curriculum so they could open up the kitchen pantry and do a math lesson and know how to do it. So we did our best to sort of meet those needs, but collaborating with the other child care providers made it feel like we weren't totally alone. I have friends who live up in Newport that have programs that are having the same struggles, and friends who live in Barrie who are running early childhood programs and sort of fighting the same fights that we fight up here in Grand Isle County. It would be wonderful to have sort of some statewide support for the issues we're facing. Because I think that in order to keep the quality early childhood educators who love what they do and they're great at what they do, we need to be able to pay to keep them in this field. And it makes me sad that they leave me in a lead role where the job is hard and they can go work as a bank teller and make more money just sort of walking in the door. And I feel like it shouldn't be that way if you hold a bachelor's degree to teach in your classroom. So I hope that we can sort of work together with some solutions to move forward and make sure that childcare is sustainable for everybody, because the families need it and so do the kids.
Thank you so much, Katie. We can just hear your passion for working to meet the needs of your community in your voice. And we really appreciate the work that you do every day for the kids in your community. And so while Katie's working so hard to provide for children and families, we know that the families are also struggling, right? This is not a one-sided crisis. And so next we're going to hear from Hannah Castillo, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a parent trying to find and afford childcare, and also what it's like to be an employer who's working to employ people who have young children. So Hannah.
Hi, first I just want to say, Katie, wow, my heart goes out to you. I hear your struggle and I see it with my own childcare providers. My name is Hannah Castillo. I work at Wake Robin in the Human Resources Office, so I have a unique perspective on this topic as a mom and as an employer of people with young children. My boys are 2 and 5. They are wild. I love them. But they are a huge part of my life at home and at work. Even just before the pandemic, my youngest son was born in 2019, and I was about 6 or 7 months pregnant, and I realized how much paying for 2 children to go to daycare full time was going to cost my family. Earlier this week, I was reminiscing with my boss about that and remembering how much I just sat down and cried when I realized how much it was going to cost me. My husband and I bought our first home in March of 2020, and 21% of our income, our household income at the time, was going to go towards our housing cost alone, mortgage, escrow account, payment. When I realized how much money we were going to be spending on our childcare, it was 31% of our income, which did not leave us much money for diapers and food and car payments, higher education, student loan payments, anything else that our family might need. And heaven forbid we had an emergency. And the idea of me, I work in HR, I make decent money. I do make the most money in my household. So me being out of work for 3 months on maternity leave was an idea that I didn't know how to cope with. I reached out to resources, but there weren't any. I ended up not taking my full maternity leave. I worked part-time towards the end of it at around 1 month. My son was a month old, and he would come to work with me and take naps on my desk, and I would nurse him through meetings. And thankfully, I have a supportive boss who I can't say enough about. And Wake Robin is a supportive employer in that way. Then the pandemic hit, and I was home with a little baby and a toddler, and I remember going to Zoom meetings in my dining room in the mornings, having played soccer, basketball, golf, gone on a walk to the mailbox, done a load of laundry, done the dishes, packed lunches, showing up to my Zoom meeting at 9 in the morning going, okay, what are we doing today? And my colleagues would show up with a blanket or a cup of coffee, and we'd kind of joke about how their mornings were great. And I'm like, okay, this is wild. So my husband and I found a way to work part-time at home and part-time out of the home so our boys could be home. I saw the changes that our childcare had to make during the pandemic, hosting Zoom story times and just being together so the kids could see each other. At the time, my 2.5, 3-year-old was sitting in front of a computer on a Zoom play date, essentially, not knowing what to do. he would just sit there and like watch it like it was going to be a TV. So none of the kids were talking. They didn't know how to interact. So I feel, Katie, for that struggle of having to adapt. I mean, these little kids had no idea what a Zoom meeting was. Since the pandemic, my work schedule has had to change. My childcare hours have shrunk by almost an hour on each end of the day, which means every day since June 2020, I have worked at least an hour less. For a while, I was not taking lunch anymore because I had to leave early to go get my children. At least half a day, a whole day has been taken off from work since the pandemic because my husband has a job where he cannot be as available as I am. So I have had to miss work for appointments. When I leave work to go pick my children up from care, or on a day they may not have care, I miss at least half a day just driving to my house because I live so far away. Just this morning, I forgot my son's water bottle for school. So I get a call from my child's care and they told me, you forgot Matthew's water bottle. We need you to come drop a water bottle off. Well, that's a 20-minute drive there, a 10-minute interaction, a 20-minute drive back, and I'm leaving early today to go pick my kids up at daycare and school. So I said to my childcare provider, I can't get a water bottle to Matthew today. I can't. My husband's unavailable. I don't know what to do. So they looked around the center. There's no paper cups. There's no school cups to borrow. There's no water bottle to borrow from another child. And I doubt that they will let my child go all day without having a drink of water, but I even gave him the suggestion of rinsing his yogurt container out to use it for a cup for the afternoon. I'm like, he can drink out of a cup, find something, he can, give him a bowl. I don't know. He could drink out of something. But it just set my whole day off because now I'm worried about my son at childcare without the supplies that he needs to get through the day. And my colleagues and I often hear about what can we do as an employer to solve this problem. And when I look at our staff here at Wake Robin, we are all a part of the care industry here in Vermont. There's housekeepers, there's LNAs, there's nursing staff. Maybe 5 to 10% of our staff here at Wake Robin are in my position where I work at a desk, and yes, my work can be done from home, but that is not true for our housekeepers. You cannot clean someone's house from your own house. They have to be here on campus at work to do the work. And we see this struggle constantly for new parents. So when parents return to the workforce, they are having to make a choice to come back and maybe not have access to childcare, or they're choosing to just stay home because that's what their family needs from them. And a lot of people think about this as a problem that a mom might have, but we've had 2 dads recently choose to stay home for their family. So it's not just a one-sided problem of gender that I think so many of us think about as moms, but it's a dad's problem too. Our hourly positions are 24/7. So we have people who may only work nights so that they can be home during the day for their children. We get applicants who can only work 8 to maybe 3:30, and they want those positions so they can be there in the morning for their kids and in the afternoon for their kids. But our schedules don't always allow for that. One of the things that we hear a lot in terms of an employer trying to fix this problem is flexible schedules. Just have flexible schedules. That's great in a perfect world for someone who works at a desk and can do work at home. Not great for a nurse who can't leave a resident with dementia in the evening because they can't handle that change of staff all of the time, or they need that one-on-one care. You can't just leave someone because you've got to run off the floor to go get your family member. We also see a big struggle when schedules are changed, and I'm not talking work schedules, but family schedules. I know that on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I have to be here to pick up my child at 3 p.m. But if someone else calls out of work and I can't leave at 3 p.m., what happens to my family? What happens to my kids that don't have a ride home or have someone to care for them? We also see this issue in rural Vermont. So if I lived in downtown Burlington in an apartment building, maybe my neighbors know my family well enough that I could say, hey, can my kids stay with you for the morning? Can you put them on the bus because I have to go to work early? But what about someone out in Addison who's the only person on a 1 mile long driveway with no neighbors? There's no one there to get their child on the bus. And I think sometimes when we think about solving this problem, we think about it in terms of being urban. And, you know, transportation might be a big part of someone's day and caring for their kids and getting them to daycare at a certain time. But if my family has one car and I don't have a bus to ride, then I can't get my children to childcare. I can't get to work. And so my hope for this is that we can think of supporting childcare centers maybe so they don't have to shorten hours. They have the supplies they need to care for children, and their staff can make a livable, decent wage. Because I hear Katie when she says we can't afford to pay our staff more. And as a parent, I can't afford to pay more for my childcare, but I want to support those moms who have brought their children into the childcare world because they can do childcare and their job at the same place. And I think it's a real struggle that I'm hoping we can find some answers for.
Thank you, Hannah. You really helped display just like how dynamic this issue is. You know, and so this is where we were going to insert another poll just to help make this feel a little more interactive, because one of my passions in developing advocates and community organizers is really that we understand that we're not alone, right? Hannah and Katie just really vulnerably shared their experiences, but we know that they're not the only ones struggling with this. So it feels like we might not be able to do the poll specifically, but I'm curious if you all would be willing to put in the chat the word afford, if you are not able to afford childcare at any point as a parent, or maybe access, if you're not able to access childcare when you needed it. And then the third question is, did you struggle to find employment, or have you struggled to find employees because of the childcare crisis? And then the final one is all of the above, right? So maybe you could, if you'd be willing, right, either afford or access or employment in the chat, or all of the above. I see Connie's already quickly written all of the above, because we know this really helps us see that this childcare crisis is affecting all of us. I can't believe how many people are putting all of the above. I mean, this is a shared experience that we're all feeling across the state. And I want you all to know that we can have a shared solution. And it was so beautiful to hear Hannah say, like, she wants to support people like Katie who are doing this important work. So I'd love to introduce our next speaker. This next speaker is a true champion for children and families, and has been for many, many, many years. And I've worked with Representative Ann Pugh for many years, and I will tell you, she's a true champion for childcare. Representative Pugh is chair of the House Human Services Committee, serves as representative for South Burlington, Chittenden District 7-2. Representative Pugh is going to share with us a little bit about what she does and what we can do to support her in passing the strongest policy possible to support children and families in Vermont. Thanks so much for being here, Representative.
Oh, Anna, thank you. And I won't say anything about how you talked about how long you have known me or how long I've been doing this work. Really,
most importantly, how long you've been doing really amazing work that is not just this year with the passage of H171, but I wanted to emphasize the fact that this has been something I know is dear and near to your heart for many years.
Well, thank you. I have to say it's a bit unnerving to follow Hannah and Kate, because the two of you are the true advocates. The two of you are the voices that enable me as a legislator, the other 10 members of the House Human Services Committee, many of whom, I want to say by the end, all 11 were childcare advocates, and individuals who, such as Representative Brumstead and Representative Topper McFawn and Representative Teresa Wood, who actually did the hard work of reporting this bill on the floor and doing it in such a way that it passed practically unanimously in terms of this work. But Hannah and Katie, no matter how wonderful Let's Grow Kids has been in terms of the facts and the figures and pointing it out, the stories, the experience that you have had, and as a parent, as a early childhood provider, as a business owner, is what helped shape this debate, and which has really enabled us to move forward. Anna is right. I don't have to tell you or anyone who is on this call, access to affordable quality childcare where at hours when we all need it, and where the staff have the support and the salary and the flexibility that they need, has been an issue for years. And it is because of advocates, it's because of people speaking out that in fact the rest of the world has recognized that it's not just a problem for parents, it's not just a problem for the providers, it's not just a problem for the employers who are having trouble keeping their employees because their employees can't find childcare. It's important for people like me who do not have any children right now, but who rely on jobs that people who do have children are providing, and who can't do it because they can't get childcare. So this is not solely an issue for young Vermonters. And this is not a solely, Hannah, you said it so well, it's not solely an issue for women. It's an issue for all Vermonters. It's an issue for providers of childcare as well as the businesses on which Vermont supports. This session, which is what Anna commented on, there was tripartisan, and then maybe the independents don't call themselves a partisan, but there are sort of 4 different groups in the State House. But with tripartisan support, we passed what was at the time known as H-171, and the governor gladly signed it. And that bill sets the stage for true childcare reform. Reform, as much as I'd like to be Glinda the Good Witch and have a magic wand and have it all work out quickly, it takes a village, and it takes time to get to where we want to be. So what the bill does is the bill lays the foundation for accessible and affordable, high quality, equitable system for our families, for our providers, and for the businesses in the future. It's a first step, and the things that we're able to do, I want to say is thanks to, that's sort of bad to say the word thanks to, but is as a result of the pandemic and the federal funding that has come in. So we've been able to really put some real money, not enough, but some real money towards supporting providers in terms of paying back loans, or supporting scholarships in terms of gaining further education. We're able to continue the greater access to more Vermont families for support from child care assistance. So those are some of the things. The goal being that really no family would spend more than 10% of their household income, not the 31% that I heard people were doing, but no family would spend more than 10%, and that early childhood educators are fairly compensated. And I guess I want to say, Hannah and Katie and Anna, you too, you are the ones who do the work that enable us as legislators to put into law those steps and policies and to fund that will make this a reality and make it work. And what you are doing, being right here, the people on this call, being educated sort of about what has happened and what the problem is, and by sharing your story and putting a human face on facts and figures is what is needed. I feel like I'm talking to the choir, that everyone around that's on this call knows this is a problem and wants to get going. Well, let me tell you, we need to sing, and we need to sing louder so that people who aren't hearing us now will in fact hear us. So I want to thank you all for your part in making this happen now. And I will stand with you as you continue to engage in this work.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your leadership. It's just so brilliant to hear that you consider everyone on your committee a child care advocate by the end of the session, and that really was due to your leadership and your invitation to bring advocates like Katie and Hannah to the table to share their experiences. So thank you so much for all your work. And so I think the next course now is like, so who's ready? Who's ready to stand up, to share your story, to be part of building this solution, to becoming a child care advocate? And so this was another opportunity for a poll. After hearing Representative Pugh speak, I think we're all really inspired. So please put in the chat if you're ready to take the next steps. Just type in yes. If you're ready and you know 5 friends who would be too, put yes +5 because that's really what it's going to take. Not just those of us here on Zoom, but us taking that step and then inviting our friends and families to join us in that. So please share in the chat, and then we're going to take some time for next steps, but also for some questions. And I already see that there's a question put in the chat. I see some yeses coming up in the chat. They are ready to take the next steps, which is so exciting. And please, you can use the reactions at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand if you have a specific question and need some any clarity on the facts or stories or information you heard from representative. And we can have a couple of minutes for questions, but we want to get into next steps because that's the bulk of this, right? It's like, what can you do about it? So we want to make sure we're giving you some concrete things you can do. But I see one question in the chat from Martha, just asking, and I'm assuming she's meaning the investment piece around, if there's, in what kind of barriers you see in incorporating early childhood for children 0 to 5 in the funding that we already see for the K-12 system. And I'm assuming that just means like in the model for having like universal access to this. What are the barriers that are holding us back from doing that as a state?
Oh, for me to answer?
Yeah, she asked it specifically to you in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing it in the chat, sorry. I want to say on some level, it's because there's different cultures in the the Agency of Education and the Agency of Human Services. And they may have the same goals, and they do have on some level the same goals. And at the same time, they sort of have different languages and different people and federal funding that they need to respond to. So we need to, because that really, you need to learn how to sort of figure that out. Is part of it, and
yeah, well, let's hope we can begin some true collaboration there.
I guess the other piece, this is speaking totally personally, when we hear about working parents and the hours that they need to work, part of the challenge of focusing on early childhood education in the school setting is that those hours are not always consistent with what, in fact, working parents need. And so we have to figure out how to make those transitions.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, we hear from so many families that balance is so difficult, and there's so many demands as workers, which I think really connects to another question that we have in the chat that I'll just speak to quickly so that we can then get to these next steps. And so chat, we have someone who said, as a member of the business community, I have found that partnerships with programs and providers are hard to create. Beyond establishing our own childcare center, we struggle to support staff in a meaningful way alone. Do you know of any future initiatives for businesses and state partnerships? And I think that's such a valuable question. And we have so many businesses now standing up in support of finding childcare solutions and actually working together to create some, creative solutions, but also working together to bring forward some solutions to the policy as well. And so I would love to be able to connect with you via email, especially so I could send you a link to that Vermont, Make Work for Us, because there's links there through to an actual business page that suggests some ways in which businesses can work together in partnership with the state to create some solutions for working families, which I think speaks also directly to what Representative Pugh was just sharing, that we really need to think about this collectively. So I want to put next, I'm putting a link in the chat. I want everyone to take the time to click on this link right now. The last thing I want to do is send you all home with homework and a long to-do list. We're already here. Let's use this time to work together. So the very first quick and easy thing you can do that's really concrete is to actually join the over 20,000 Vermonters who have already signed the petition calling on increased investments in high quality, affordable childcare. This tool allows us to really know, again, that we're not alone, that in fact, the majority of Vermonters want to prioritize these investments. It then helps us tell our representatives that we also have this large population of people who want this to happen. And then it helps us back up our childcare champions like Representative Pugh, so that she also knows she's not alone. And so she can say, hey, look at all of my constituents who have said that they want this too, and can put some pressure on her colleagues to make this happen. So this is such an easy, quick thing you can do. And I hope you're all just filling it out right now while I'm jibber jabbering. So again, that you've just check the first thing off your list. You've joined the movement, and this will not only is not only a tool for us, but it's a tool for you, because now that you've filled this out, you actually get to be part of finding out the real-time information of what's happening in the childcare system. And then the second thing that we're offering, and I want to pass that on to Jet next, is that this is not just a one and done. we're offering this as a series. And so we're going to have another opportunity on October 20th for you all to join us to really learn those concrete next steps on becoming an advocate, how to use your personal story for change, and the ways that you can actually invest your time and energy into helping us create this solution together. So I really hope you'll all join us on the 20th. And I'll be sending out a follow-up email with some more details, but we filled this hour pretty good. So Jet, do you want to give us a little closing?
Yes, if I can figure out how to unmute myself. So thank you all so much. And again, we will follow up with everyone with more details about the 20th, because I was busy filling out that form, Anna, that you had linked us to. So I just want to really thank everyone for taking the time this afternoon. We are going to finish on time. In particular, thank you to our presenters. Thank you to Anna and Let's Grow Kids for partnering with us, but in particular, Katie and Hannah Castillo, Katie Brown, Hannah Castillo, for sharing your personal stories. Of course, Representative Pugh, the work that you've done has been, great for advancing childcare, and I'm excited. That sounds like people are excited to get behind the work as well. And I guess I'll just close it by, well, first of all, thanking United Way for giving us the support and the platform, and particularly Carrie Kelly, the person behind the scene that makes it all happen. But there are so many colleagues of hers at United Way that support this. And again, Women United, we're all about advancing financial stability for women and their families. And so it is not hard to create the connection between affordable, reliable childcare and allowing people to remain at work and succeed at work. So it's a clear connection. So thank you all, and look for emails, follow up on this session, and there will be a recording. And so we will certainly be in touch. And so thank you all. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jet, and thanks for this opportunity. And the one last thing I didn't get to share, and I'll share this link in the follow-up email, is that we also have a link in which you can thank your legislators personally. And especially if your legislator is Representative Ann Pugh, I'll send you the link, and we should all just send her a big congratulations and thanks for her hard work so that we can continue this together. And so there's just so many little things we can all do that make a really big difference. And actually that thank you, I think, goes a long way. So again, thanks so much, Representative Pugh, and thanks to everybody for this great opportunity. I can't wait to be in touch.